Hello everyone, this is my third video titled Functional Overloading. Now let's pop the hood on functional overloading. What is functional overloading? Functional overloading is giving the same name to several different functions or using the same operator symbol for different operations. The reason this could perhaps be beneficial for a programmer is consider the absolute value function. In languages that do not support overloading, there are usually 3 or more versions of this function, each with a slightly different name. In languages that do not support method overloading, each method must be given a unique name. However, frequently you will want to implement essentially the same method for different types of data. Now, in representing why functional overloading is useful, there's no real drawback so long as the overloaded function are planned and implemented. It's possible to create overloaded functions that are ambiguous under certain conditions so that a call to that function does not run the correct code but a different overloaded version that you were not expecting. This could happen when data types are not exactly correct. For example, overloaded functions with very similar argument lists need to be well documented and well managed to prevent bugs in your code. Moving on to our first example, real world example. If a girl is married and a mother of 2 children doing a teaching job, then she is a woman first, teaching in a school. When she's at school, she's a wife of someone at home and a mother of her children, an obvious daughter of someone, and maybe a girlfriend of someone. Ha ha ha, just kidding. Means a woman. This basically means that a woman can play many different roles. Now let's move on to our next example, our coding example. Now in our coding example, we see that we have built a function for a user to input a number and it to be printed out on the screen. Let's go ahead and we've gone ahead and made an integer a and float b. And what these functions do is they print out the integer and the float. But you notice how the name of the functions are exactly the same, but in the parameters of the function it says integer. There's one for integer, which satisfies this right here, and one for float, which satisfies this right here. And that's basically what function overloading is. It's not really necessary to do, but it helps with ambiguity and clarity when you're a user or a programmer. Now moving on. Something that you should know about overloading. Overloading is a subset of polymorphism. Polymorphism is the ability to determine which of the several operations with the same name is appropriate. A combination of static and dynamic binding. Polymorphism is one of the 3 necessary constructs in an object-oriented language, as well as encapsulation and inheritance. Now let's move on to our next example, or our next slide. Now, the bigger scheme of things, what is functional overloading really used for? In some instances, not typically, but it can be used for JavaScript and HTML to create web services, as well as it can be used to operate an ATM machine. Now moving on to our next slide. And that is the end of our session.